The change of the agenda is related to the meeting of environment ministers. Tomorrow, the meeting of education ministers is going according to the planned agenda. There will be no change education ministers meeting. I hope now it's clear. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, distinguished guests, dear participants, dear friends, I welcome you to the third joint high-level meeting of Education and Environment Ministers on education for sustainable development. A high-level meeting with particular interest and importance since it focuses on education, which can be a fundamental tool to behavioral change and for promoting new appropriate attitudes of as an environmental citizenship. It is an honor for me to co-chair this session with my colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment, Mr. Kostas Kadis. An honor because this session is about the vision, decisions and actions on education for sustainable development that will lead and guide the UNESE region member states toward 2030. This high-level meeting is the moment to comment on and a great opportunity for us to discuss the new implementation framework of the UNESE strategy on education for sustainable development 2021-2030. A very ambitious plan which is aligned with the major initiatives on ESD on a regional, Mediterranean, European, and global level. We proceed towards this plan fully aware of the current change and crisis. In a rapidly changing world with considerable political and socio-economic developments at national and global level, the new implementation framework for UNESE strategy on ESD 2030 can respond to many known and new challenges. Personally, I realize that co-chairing this special session is even more important, knowing that Cyprus has the honor to chair since 2017 the UNESE ESD Steering Committee, a very powerful and effective committee inspired by knowledge, expertise, and capacity building, leading to innovations and good practices on ESD for sustainable development communities. From the beginning of its enactment, as a concrete platform, the UNESE ESD strategy has guided and supported our countries whilst also strengthening resulting synergies in a manner that we have concrete policies, plans and actions on a national level in a coordinated, unified way. Through the UNESE ESD Steering Committee, this strategy operates as a credible mechanism and a trustworthy platform of building bridges and bringing together our countries to face the issues that constitute the biggest challenges for our planet and for all humans. The well-known threats of climate crisis, desertification, ice melt, loss of biodiversity, plastic pollution, and ocean pollution as acidification. Our session also has a special symbolism as it brings us in front of a very critical question regarding the content and the essence of ESD, the very future of our education. The answer to the question whether education can serve to achieve a more sustainable, just and healthy world is undoubtedly positive. But we have to elaborate on the transitions needed to reach that and specify who will lead the way. It is also necessary to shape new possibilities in education and prepare our education institutions to appropriately adapt their curricula, methodologies, pedagogy, operations and regulation, governance structures and infrastructure, as a compass to meet the challenge of sustainability. At the same time, we have to answer how education can be strengthened and reoriented in the post-pandemic period and beyond. We share the view that education can be a fundamental tool and contribute to behavioral change. In these times, a central question is how education can initiate an environmental citizenship. At this moment, we need action and not only words. The common challenges we face require to act now and to be committed, working together to turn ESD into an intrinsic part and an essential tool of our policies, because we want to give young students hope in troubled times, a hope based on skills, knowledge, and new appropriate attitudes. Today with you, my counterparts, representatives of international and regional organizations, civil society, academia, NGOs, and mainly our youth, we have the chance to discuss, interact, and commit to shaping plans for our planet. We will work together to transform our education plans to transform our planet. Thank you. I pass the floor now for a welcoming speech to my colleague next to me, the Minister of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Kostas Kadis.
Thank you, Mr. Prodromou, and it is a great honor for me to co-chair this high-level meeting with you and with other colleagues, of course. Distinguished guests, dear colleagues, dear participants, let me also welcome you to the 9th Environment for Europe Ministerial Conference and the 3rd Joint High-Level Meeting of Education and Environment Ministers on Education for Sustainable Development. It is imperative to highlight the importance of this high-level meeting, as discussion on education for sustainable development will evolve with the participation of the Ministers of Environment and the Ministers of Education, but more importantly, with the active engagement of young people. Admittedly, we are facing the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution that puts the current and the future generations in risk. It is our duty to take decisions that will safeguard the well-being of the future generation, but it is also our duty to educate young people who are the future leaders to respect the planetary boundaries and protect the environment. This is the only way for humanity to continue to develop and thrive on the planet. Education is key for achieving sustainable development. During this economic, environmental, climate, and social crisis era, in which the education systems have been so severely hit, we need to get back on track towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. This is our opportunity to discuss, interact, and work with the youth for creating a more prosperous, equitable, healthy, and sustainable planet. It is the moment for all of us to commit that we will upscale our efforts for the implementation of the UNESCO Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development. I would like to remind you that this plenary session will include introductory remarks by the UNESCO Executive Secretary, Ms. Olga Algayerova, the Deputy Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, Ms. Sonia Leighton-Kohn, and the video messages from the Assistant Director General for Education of the United Nations, Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Mrs. Stefania Giannini, and the Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture of the European Commission, Ms. Themis Christofidou. Afterwards, a presentation will follow on the key findings of the report on the progress of the implementation of the UNESCO Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development, and a brief outline of the next framework for the implementation of the UNESCO Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development from 2021 to 2030 by Dr. Arabella Zachariou, Chair of the UNESCO Steering Committee on Education for Sustainable Development. After, we'll follow the plenary discussion with the statements regarding the new framework for the implementation of the UNESCO Strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030, and the floor will be open for brief interventions and statements by ministers, focusing on the implementation of the UNESCO Strategy for ESD at the national level during the new framework from 2021 to 2030. Finally, due to the time constraints, I would kindly ask you to respect the time limits. Now, before giving the floor to the respectful speakers, I would like to highlight that the regional and international processes and mechanisms on education for sustainable development play a critical role in the implementation of ESD in regional and national levels. The experiences gained by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe show that education for sustainable development can be achieved only through coalitions and strong collaborations between organizations and countries. And in this session, we will have the opportunity to have the introductory remarks from the Ms. Olga Algayerova, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Ms. Algayerova, the floor is yours.
Thank you, distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me really a great pleasure to open this high-level meeting of Education and Environment Ministries, the two key sectors for sustainable development. At the same time, I would like to welcome all stakeholders, our partners from UNESCO, UNEP, other UN agencies, the European Commission, international organizations, and especially many non-governmental organizations which highlight an increasing role of civil society in the sustainable development agendas in our UNEC region. Our high-level meeting will focus on the new implementation framework of the UNEC strategy for education for sustainable development up to 2030. Education has a special role in addressing dramatic and unprecedented challenges currently faced by our planet and societies. The Nicosia Ministerial Statement on Education for Sustainable Development, or ESD, proposed for your adoption today, expresses your political will to implement the framework developed with a view of advancing ESD in the region as a contribution to the ESD for 2030 education program led by UNESCO on the global level, as well as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Since the adoption of the UNEC strategy for ESD in 2005, the UNEC member states have been working together on its implementation under the aegis of UNEC Steering Committee on ESD. The findings of the last evaluation report were taken into consideration in drafting the future implementation framework focused on 4 strengths or priority areas of regional and national, but also global importance. These strengths reflect many of the identified issues in a combined and complementary way and may contribute to improving educational systems and other mechanisms to enable people to learn, live, and work on a more prosperous, just, creative, healthy, and sustainable planet and region. And here, the EC expertise could help in facilitating such transformative mobilization and change. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not a coincidence that the next phase of work being launched at the present high-level meeting will cover the period till 2030. Member states should be encouraged to further develop and strengthen strategies, plans, and mechanisms for the implementation of ESD, as it can be a powerful catalyst for the transition towards more resilient systems and futures, and for the benefit of current and future generations. I wish that member states make efforts to seize the extraordinary opportunity for global and regional collaboration offered by the SDGs to strengthen and enhance ESD at all levels. The UNEC Secretariat has been providing support to the implementation of the UNEC strategy for ESD for the last 17 years. That is since the Vilnius meeting back in 2005, and will continue to do so, subject to availability of resources, which is always a critical factor. Please allow me to use this opportunity to express my gratitude to those member states who contributed to the trust fund since the last steering committee meeting in May 2022. I really hope that member states will be able to allocate and mobilize sufficient financial and human resources to ensure the continuation, development, consolidation, and expansion of ESD, fostering national and local ESD processes for the implementation of this new framework. I'm also hopeful that today's high-level meeting will reaffirm the commitment of the member states for the future implementation of the strategy by endorsing the new implementation framework and adopting the joint ministerial statement. Finally, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to the government and the people of Cyprus for hosting this memorable conference with such a generous hospitality. Cyprus has been chairing the UNEC Steering Committee on ESD since 2017 with Dr. Aravela Zachariou, and thank you, as its representative. Without really her immense energy, we might not have been here today at this conference. So I wish all of us a successful meeting, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Algayeroa, for your introductory remarks. Definitely the new framework of the UNESCO strategy for ESD will be a very useful means for developing our new national strategies. Now, as a second speaker, I would like to invite Mrs. Sonia Layton-Kohn, Deputy Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme, for her introductory remarks. Mrs. Layton-Kohn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, distinguished guests. As we look to the future, and sometimes it seems so daunting, I personally take encouragement from our leaders and thinkers of the past. And so at this high-level meeting, I would like to recall Miss Marian Wright Edelman, who was a towering figure in the American Civil Rights Movement. In 1971, she became the first Black woman elected to the Yale Board of Trustees. A few years later, She founded the Children's Defense Fund, where she became a tireless defender of the rights of children and the transformative power of education. She said, education is for improving the lives of others and for leaving your community and world better than you found it. With these simple words, I believe she sums up exactly why we're here today. We're here to transform the education system so we can equip people with the knowledge and skills they need to leave the world in a better state to the one they found it. This is the very essence of sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, our world is in crisis. It is clear humanity is on the wrong track. The systems we have designed and built are no longer fit for purpose. Indeed, they seem to be part of the problem. If we're to walk a new path, if we're to address today's complex interconnected crises, if we're to reshape the systems and values that are calling them, survive and thrive, and if we're to redeem and remake the state of the world, then we must first transform the state of education. This means investing in education for sustainable development around curricula. It means teaching people how to build resilience to environmental shocks. It means raising awareness among the public so that new policies, reforms, and technical solutions are understood and supported. It means scaling up the role of education to tackle future crises, to empower learners of all ages to act for environmental integrity, economic viability, and a more just, equitable society. In essence, the education system must be aimed at creating citizens who are capable of addressing today's crises, who are capable of ending our war with nature, of finding ways to transform the broken systems that govern us. Sustainability is no longer a choice. It is now a matter of survival for millions and millions of people around the world. I can think of nothing more important than making sure the way we educate people reflects this. So let us begin today to transform the state of education and in doing so, remake our world that we secure the health, well-being, and prosperity of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Leydon-Cohn, for your inspiring remarks. Now we will watch the video message of Mrs. Stefania Giannini, the Assistant Director for Education of UNESCO, to our meeting.
Excellencies, distinguished experts, dear participants, it's a great pleasure and honor to address this high-level ministerial meeting on education for sustainable development, which I thank the Republic of Cyprus for hosting. By bringing together both environment and education ministers, this meeting carries real transformative policy power. This region's commitment to education for sustainable development is mature, going back some 15 years, and I wish to acknowledge this important role you're having. In particular, the UN Economic Commission for Europe's Steering Committee on ESD has been a most prominent partner for UNESCO. Its ESD regional strategy made an important contribution to our global framework on ESD for 2030 and its accompanying roadmap. Well, we know all that ESD is no longer optional. It's a kind of must. It's not something nice to add. It's an imperative now to steer the green transition in the face of complex global crises. Every day we are witnessing the impact of climate change, intensifying natural disasters and biodiversity loss together with mounting socioeconomic inequalities. And education for sustainable development actually as a framework, as one side of the two coins, together with global citizenship of 4.7, actually it's the tool to empower learners with the knowledge, with the skills they need, and most importantly, with the values to take informed decisions and actions in addressing these challenges, and to be the citizens we need in the future. This is a framework which actually helps to connect the dots between the environment, the society, and the economic infrastructure, building awareness of the impact of how we produce, how we consume, and how we live. Yet UNESCO's diagnosis of national documents from some 100 countries find that half make no mention of climate change in curricula. We also had an interesting survey on teachers, and teachers say actually they believe it's important to teach about climate change, but they don't feel prepared to do so. And the last point I wish to highlight, it's about the youth. In a recent global youth poll, half of the young people surveyed said that their education didn't prepare at all them for the future. So based on this knowledge I have, the Transforming Education Summit convened by the Secretary General Guterres last month in New York at the UN brought this kind of sense of urgency center stage. This is the very first time in history that education came to the top of the political agenda, with the heads of states, with the head of government making national statements of commitment to transform, to how transform their system for greater inclusion, for quality education, for better society, resilient, and really projected to the future we need. Significantly, a third of countries out of more than 100 committed to integrating climate change education into curricula, and this is a very good news. In this context, UNESCO, in close cooperation with the UNFCCC and ILO, launched what we call the Green in Education Partnership, in the presence of heads of state, education ministers, and young people. I want to stress this point. Young people were really very much the main actors in the process. Taking a lifelong learning, a whole school, whole society approach, this partnership now sets goals, clear results, outcomes to be measured, to be delivered first, to be measured, to be accountable for on green school accreditation, on including climate change in school curricula, on training teachers and supporting policymakers in this field, and most importantly, on reaching all the learners and changing the mindset. Transformation runs through this partnership because fundamentally it involves a kind of shift of paradigm, shifting how and what students learn in the relationship between school and society, and in how education promotes what we can call active citizenship. I really strongly encourage countries present to join this partnership and work together towards its implementation. We must continue stepping up efforts to bring education into climate change debates and negotiation and the other way around. We succeeded at COP26 in Glasgow, bringing together, I suppose, the first time ministers of education and environment. This meeting does, and some ministers present today, I'm sure, were there and have a good memory, and thanks for the active role. And we'll continue at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. Today's meeting paves the way forward and makes a highly valuable contribution to strengthen the role of education for sustainable development to be transformative and to transform the future. I thank you very much, all of you, and wish an excellent discussion today.
We thank Mrs. Giannini for her statement. And now we will watch the second video message, which comes from Mrs. Themis Christophidou, the Director General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture of the European Commission.
Dear friends, thank you for the opportunity to share with you a few thoughts on education for sustainable development. Citizens are already experiencing the effects of the climate crisis and the loss of biodiversity. The question is, How can we live more sustainably for individual and collective change? We need a profound transformation, not only of our economy, but also our culture, behavior, and lifestyles. Quality education, a key focus of the UNESC framework, is key to changing mindsets and empowering young pupils and adults to take action towards sustainability. Indeed, education plays a central role if we are to meet the ambitious goals of the European Green Deal. One way we, as European Commission, have been guiding this effort has been through providing support to the Member States, their education systems, and communities. Just last June, Member States adopted a recommendation on learning for green transition and sustainable development. Recommendations focus on how we can leverage European funds, for example, Erasmus+, to support opportunities at national and local level to learn about sustainability. We also published a new European competence framework on sustainability. The framework, Green Comp, maps out sustainability skills and competences for learners of all ages in all educational settings, formal, non-formal, and informal. Competences like critical thinking, system thinking, empathy, responsibility, care and connection with nature empower learners to take action for the planet, becoming agents of change. We look forward to seeing Green Comp being used in curricula, teacher education programs, and policy development. Our efforts take advantage of our role bridging different education systems and experiences, but we also acknowledge the huge work being done on the ground by our teachers and by the education community in general. Teachers across Europe have been our greatest allies, and I could not miss this chance to thank them for their commitment today on World Teachers' Day. Let me give you an example. 2 weeks ago, at the European Innovative Teaching Award ceremony, the Gymnasium of Polis Chrysouchous, here in Cyprus, won with their project Cycling on Nature's Wheels. Their program brought them together with schools in Greece, Italy, Poland, and Romania. Their students learned about waste, recycling, and energy reduction. And they learned outdoors, doing hands-on activities in nature in an interdisciplinary way. And their project aligned sustainability to other of our goals like inclusion, student-centered learning, or building digital skills. We recognize the huge potential of the education community, and to capitalize on this, we invested in the Education for Climate Coalition. The coalition works at grassroots level, mobilizing and connecting learners, teachers, and practitioners across Europe, working on climate change and sustainability. Through this platform, they can develop many exciting initiatives, from creating new teaching materials to organizing citizen science activities. Learning for sustainability is a challenge, but also a tremendous opportunity to make learning more relevant, hands-on, and engaging. And events like today's only reinforce the fact that working together really is the way forward. Thank you.
We thank Mrs. Christophidou for her statement, and we thank all the respectful speakers for their introductory statements and remarks. The new framework for the implementation of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Education for Sustainable Development strategy is the result of the progress of the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development strategy at its fourth cycle of implementation in the UNESCO region. It also takes into consideration the emerging challenges and needs for education and sustainable development in the region. I would like now to give the floor to Dr. Arabella Zachariou, the chair of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Steering Committee on Education, for development to present the key findings of the report on progress in the implementation of the UNESCO strategy for ESD and the new framework for the implementation of the strategy from 2021 to 2030. Arabella.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Please, can I have my presentation, please? Thank you. I'm trying very briefly to describe how we managed to be here today in order for discussing the new implementation framework for UNCSD strategy for 21 to 2023. But please allow me to explain very briefly the idea behind the UNC strategy, which is the practical tool which provides guidance to the member states on how to develop and incorporate ESD in all forms of education. Especially UNC as the ESD steering committee aiming it through UNC ESD strategy to establish a policy and a regulatory mechanism for implementing ESD, to integrate sustainable development in all forms of education, and of course to enhance the training systems of teachers and professional development courses, ensuring adequate tools and materials on ESD, promote research in the field, and strengthening the collaboration and cooperation amongst countries at all levels and in all forms of education by disseminating and integrating ESD. The process for producing this report, the fourth progress report, based on the 32 national implementation reports that submitted by the countries in the UNEC ESD Steering Committee, which included 48 quantitative and qualitative indicators. The authoring of the report prepared by the government of Cyprus and the peer review of the process was developed by Dr. Paul Vare and Dr. Paul Pace. The final document is a publication, a book that you can take it from the exhibition kiosk of the UNEC, where you can see an extended report of 192 pages, which provides an overview of ESD integration in the UNEC region. The conclusions of the fourth evaluation cycle of the UNCSD strategy shows that there is an increased political commitment for integrating the ESD strategy. Policy and regulatory and operational frameworks are generally in place. There are more policy-oriented synergies at the national level, and of course there is a correlation of ESD strategy with the SDGs. On the field of formal education, ESD is explicitly addressed in the curricula, and whole institutional approach is gaining more attention at school level. Quality and assessment and enhancement mechanism intend to give emphasis mainly to the student-centered assessment and not so much with the ESD, and non-formal and informal need evaluation and monitoring systems. Also, regarding the educator competences, we can see in the report that there are increased opportunities for pre and in-service trainings, and of course, there's a lack of data on content of courses. Tools and materials produced in a very diverse scale, but there is a lack of government support, control criteria, and accessibility in tools. On the field of research and development, policies need to be horizontally introduced and connected with theory and practice. And in the field of informal education, I will have to strengthen the cultural characteristics of indigenous people. The main recommendations of this report on the field of policy and regulatory mechanism shows that we have to invest more and try more in establishing coordinating policies within countries for promoting ESD, establish national mechanisms for monitoring progress achieved regarding policies implemented. We have to evolve more the quality assessment systems. More emphasis must be given in place on assessing how values and attitudes are affected by the implementation of the strategy in the future. Establish mechanisms of monitoring, standardize of learning outcomes is needed, especially addressing attitudes and values, and the development of quality criteria for integrating whole institution approach is also another issue that emerged from the report. Finally, regarding the educators' competences, there is a need to assess the content of program that provided in teachers' professional development, and especially in tertiary level, to enforce government support to create synergies. On tools and materials, I identified the need to establish a universal quality mechanism across countries, and on research and development, there is a need for more funding on research and dissemination of good practices, networking opportunities, and sharing of knowledge. The new implementation UNEC's ESD framework 2021-2030 is an ambitious goal for the UNECSD steering committee because aims to strengthen the position of the ESD in the UNEC region, but also to give feasible and measurable targets that will help countries to achieve their commitment and our commitment to ESD, and also establishing collaboration with other regional processes like UNESCO, EU, UNEP. The timeline for development, the new UNECSD framework 2021-2030, it was a result of a participatory and collaborative process which started in 2019. When the steering committee in its 14th meeting maintained to an expert group of people to elaborate implementation framework, a draft implementation framework. Four expert group considered from leaders, strand leaders, national focal point experts worked in this direction, which reflected on the four strands of this new implementation framework: the quality education and DSD, the whole institution approach and DSD, digital education and DSD, and innovation, interpretation and DSD. Also, two meetings organized in Hague and Nicosia in 2019 and 2020, and two online meetings. The draft document presented in UNECSD steering committee and revised, and the final document presented on the 17th meeting of the committee on 2022, which will presented here today as final for approval. The new implementation framework is based on four main strands. The whole process was coordinated for Professor Michael Skoulos from Greece and Dr. Roel van Rijk from Netherlands. And the four strands of this new implementation framework was led, the quality education by Professor Daniela Tilbury from UK, the whole institution approach by Professor Paul Pace from Malta, and me. ICT and DSD was led by Professor Michel Ricard from France and Professor Daniel Burgos from Spain, and the field of entrepreneurship and employment from Professor Stelios Yatros from Cyprus and Ms. Tatiana Shakirova from Kyrgyzstan. The four strands covers four main levels: the system, the educators, the learners, and the institution, and they have a specific structure: the introduction, the vision, the policy framework, strategic directions, recommendation, and the work plan activities. The whole new implementation framework reflects to SDGs and identified the emergencies in the action that we have to take on the 17th SDGs. very briefly, just to mention that regarding the quality education, the vision based into create quality standards and frameworks, mechanisms, and resources that will facilitate UNEC member states to work in this direction. And the whole idea behind the quality education is to develop quality criteria framework, develop benchmark tools, and collect good practices and examples from countries to share experiences. In a whole institution of approach, the whole vision aims every institution and organization in formal and non-formal education to become a sustainable organization. And of course, the main idea behind this is to develop a framework for whole institution approach and set a quality of criteria for institutions and create a guide for developing a whole institution approach. On the third strand for ICT and digital tools, there is the vision behind it is to create, promoting ESD and new educational practices that will facilitate people to assess and develop learning tools. And the indicative work plan activities has to do with the collection of good practices and creation of an open science framework allowing the use, reuse, creation, and sharing of open education. And finally, in the field of entrepreneurship and innovation, the vision is to use ESD in stimulating entrepreneurial and innovation mindset in learners in order to accelerate transformations. Indicative work plan activities that are behind this strand is to identify qualifications and skills in the field of sustainable development, to promote the networking of ESD with other stakeholders in the local communities, and create guidelines of benchmarks and in all levels of education. With this opportunity, I want to thank you. And from my point of view as a chair of the UNEC Steering Committee, I would like just to address that this new implementation framework is a very ambitious strategic framework that is giving a new impetus to the work that we have to do in the UNEC region on ESD strategy. And I'm sure that all together with this promising framework, I think that we can do many things in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaharia, for presenting the amazing work that was carried out by your committee and for presenting the two very important documents. Please allow me now to pass the floor to my colleague, the co-chair, Mr. Prodromos, Minister of Education, Sport and Youth, to open the plenary discussion for the new framework for the implementation of the UNESCO strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030. Prodrome, the floor is yours.
Dear colleagues, dear participants from all the civil society, the strategic policy document was prepared by the ad hoc group of experts in the UNESCO ESD Steering Committee, as we know now, in consultation with the national focal points of the member countries, members of the international and regional organizations, academia, NGOs, and the UNESCO ESD Youth Platform. It is obviously a collective work, and it is the result of collaboration, discussions, negotiation, but mainly the joint will of all the countries to move forward to a new framework for ESD in the UNESCO region. This new framework will support the countries to respond to the demands vis-à-vis the challenges, as we know, the climate crisis and pollution, as well as war, health crisis, and other calamities or threats that dominate widely. For the preparation of this document, the ad hoc group considered the UNESCO strategy for ESD per se of 2005 and the previous framework for implementation 2015 to 2019, As part of the process of elaborating the new strategic plan, the national focal points and experts of the ECE Steering Committee on ESD held a series of in-person and online meetings during the period 2018-2021 and produced the present draft document further to consultation and approval. This policy document took also in consideration and is aligned to other global commitments and regional initiatives, as it has been already presented by the chair of the UNESE ESD Steering Committee, Mrs. Arabella Zachariou. Your commitment and support are critical for its effective implementation. I will open the floor for your statements. Please note that statements are only for up to 1 minute, and we have to keep the time strictly to give the opportunity to different countries and organizations to take the floor. At first, the floor will be given to countries that already formulated the demand, and then we will continue with the rest. So we will start with Germany, and then Greece will follow.
Thank you very much. Education is at the heart of tackling the triple global crisis, and I think we have a really promising framework for this now. So thank you for all that work. Germany is committed to implement the necessary actions put forward in the 2021 Berlin Declaration on ESD, as ESD is key enabler for achieving the Agenda 2030. To achieve the goal of empowering all learners to act sustainably by 2030, Germany has established a comprehensive national interministerial and multi-stakeholder process. Stakeholders from politics, science, industry, society, and youth work closely together to implement a national plan of action on ESD. This process addresses both the formal and non-formal education sector. Therefore, several programs are being established strengthening ESD, for example, in technical and vocational education and training, and promoting lifelong learning for ESD for and with municipalities across Germany. Innovative ESD practices being highlighted with national ESD awards, promoting a whole institution approach, as well as a national endowed ESD prize, encouraging transfer activities. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is now to the Minister of Greece, Ms. Kerameos, please.
Dear fellow Education and Environment Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and pleasure to be here with you today to discuss this most vital issue regarding the new framework for the implementation of the UN Economic Commission for Europe Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development from 2021 to 2030. First of all, I would like to very warmly congratulate the organizers for the excellent preparation leading to the summit and for all the hard work during the past few months. And I would like to thank in particular our host, Cyprus, for the warm philoxenia, as this hall commemorates, that is their gracious hospitality. As our societies and education systems are called to prepare students for a world that's changing at a very fast pace, a new framework for education for sustainable development is needed now more than ever. Emphasis on quality education, whole of institution approach, digital education, and skills for jobs of the future are 4 pillars that should progressively underpin all our education systems so that we are in a position to give our students the tools that they will need to succeed in the future. Please allow me to highlight the importance of the continuation of this initiative to bring together ministers of education and environment, and to underscore that what is carried out in this hall today should guide us in how we design cross-sectoral policies for a sustainable future. There is no doubt that in light also of the magnitude of the challenges ahead, we need to all work together. Thank you very much for your attention, and I greatly look forward to hearing your interventions.
Thank you. Now please, the floor is to the representative of the Eco Forum.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for me to speak in this House on behalf of the European Eco Forum and European non-profit organizations. To say a little about myself, I'm a bit of walking history of this Europe Environment for Europe process, because I belong to the small circle of people who with Josef Vavroušek prepared the first conference in Dobříž. And I must remind you that already in Dobříž conference, there was discussed the role of environment, of education and environment. And there one of 3 sessions in the first conference was session on ethical values. Education is the basic tool to shape a social environment and change a way of living to secure a durable future for next generations. Even if education for sustainable development has been in UNEC focus already from 2005, we are not sure that all efforts in the UNEC regions brought satisfactory results. We see that the emissions of greenhouse gases and environmental degradation is still rising in many UNEC countries. Air is still polluted, and even very dangerous military operations in our regions are seriously damaging the environment. We welcome the framework for implementation of UNEC Commission's of the strategy for education for next years, 2021 till 2030. And we are very happy that there were many important topics now included in the framework of this strategy. Anyway, many thanks to hard work which was done, and we will be glad to cooperate on future cooperation. We therefore call all delegates to understand correctly what the term education for sustainable development means, that the education policies in every country must advance at least all the commitments and prospects for the future that UNESCO Berlin Declaration expresses. UNESCO research from year 2021 shows that the results of education for sustainable development are not very optimistic worldwide. For example, climate change is included only in half of curricula, and most teachers do not feel to be able to sufficiently explain the effects of climate change in their local environment. We welcome the significant improvement in the cooperation between UNECE and UNESCO in preparation of the 2021 to 2030 strategy document, and hope that this cooperation will also lead to improved results at the evaluation process. Sharing of good practices of successful transformation might help a lot as well. The tremendous commitment of various individual schools at all levels, NGOs, young people, and other individuals is promoting education for sustainable development is certainly to be appreciated. But on the other hand, we still feel that in many countries, these efforts are not supported by the administration and still depend very much on personal enthusiasm of individuals. This can also be seen even in the UNEC ESD steering committee, where some states are doing very nice work, while the others virtually ignore that whole process. So thank you very much for possibility to speak on this high-level forum. Thank you.
Thank you. I realize that there is a demand for the floor from Armenia.
Thank you very much. My name is Gayane Gabrielian. I'm Deputy Minister of Environment of Armenia. So, dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, before starting my presentation, first and foremost, I would like to expand my delegation's appreciation and heartfelt thankfulness to the government of So Evcharisto. My gratitude also to the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe for the promotion of the pan-European economic integration and addressing the global environmental challenges. Environmental degradation is a global and growing concern. Increasing population pressures, escalating consumption patterns, and rapid industrial development are key contributors of this degradation. We recognize that sustainable development policies, plans, and actions of being implemented when they are supported by an educated, informed public. In this regard, the inclusion of environmental education into the curricula of different studies is crucial. Armenia's legal framework for environmental education and awareness raising includes the 2015 Constitution of Armenia, the relevant multilateral environmental agreements to which the country is a party and which contain provision related to environmental education and awareness raising, and several laws regulation the education sector. Laws regulating environmental matters include provisions related to making available environmental information, thereby implicitly supporting environmental education. The law on environmental education and updating provides the main legal framework for environmental education. According to the law, lifelong integrated environmental education is a part of the country's education system and is compulsory at the levels of education. A draft law new amendment to the law of environmental education is revised and submitted to the government of Armenia. Since 2021, the education system of Armenia has been undergoing changes, including to update the curricula to integrate themes related to sustainable development and advanced environmental education and education for sustainable development in lifelong formal, non-formal, and informal education. Armenia is advancing well in promoting non-formal and informal environmental education and ECD. These activities are mainly project-based with support from international donors. The key actors engaged in implementing on the ground non-formal and informal environmental education and ECD are the UNDP, the National Ozone Unit, the European Union, OSCE until 2017, GIZ, Austrian Development Agency, and other NGOs. Non-formal and informal climate change education is also under special attention, contributing to achieve the SDG targets 13.3 on improving education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. A series of number actions, initiative, events, workshop, and training courses are conducted to raise awareness and develop capacities of children, youth, studies, teachers, and journalists. The strategy for development of environment education and upgrading is a main policy document guiding for the activities for promoting environmental education. The Ministry of Environment has signed several memoranda of understanding with different educational institutions in order to mainstream and coordinate the process of environmental education and onwards. Finalizing, environmental education is a methodology in which people pick up familiarity with their surroundings and secure learning, abilities, values, experience, and passion, all of which will improve them to act separately and aggregately to take care of present and future environmental issues for a green future for our generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We go on with Slovenia and then follows Romania, but please, I have to remind that the floor is just for 1 minute We are out of time all the time. Slovenia, please.
Thank you very much, dear Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure as well to address this important conference on behalf of Slovenia. I'm very happy to say that it's my second time attending a UNECE conference, as I participated in Batumi 5 years ago, where Slovenia made a commitment to improve the air quality on its territory. I'm very happy to report that we've been successful in this, and that although challenges remain, the trend looking forwards is positive. The adoption of the framework for ESD implementation represents a sort of a collective commitment on all of us to continue with and to deepen the implementation of the ESD strategy. We need ESD to both empower citizens to contribute to sustainable development through the choices that they make as individuals, as consumers, as the choices that they make in their lifestyles. But we also need ESD to empower them to demand sound choices of other actors in society and the economy, including governments. This is why I hope that the implementation of the ESD will be a success, and then in some years we'll be able to witness this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Romania, please.
Distinguished ministers, dear participants, it's time for action. We all are aware of the urgent need to act toward an effective implementation of the fourth strength of the new framework of the UNECE strategy for education for sustainable development for the period 2021-2030. At the national level, we assume and promote green schools and green learning. Romania is among the countries which included the green skills in the core framework of skills for primary and lower secondary education. At the same time, we have allocated important funds to set up a national network of green schools which save resources and implement eco-schools programs. Participation and engagement of all relevant stakeholders at the national and international level, including regional and local communities and civil society, is essential. The steps forward taken to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals are important for our region. In this context, I would like to emphasize our commitment for high-quality systems of education that recognize schools, digital education, entrepreneurship, and innovation as priority action. Thank you very much.
We continue with Palestine.
Thank you. And thank you for organizing this important conference. And let me greeting all the teachers all over the world on the International Day for the Teacher, which happened today. I have just some few points. First, I was part of the Transforming Education Summit, which took place in New York 3 weeks ago. And we are speaking about transforming education system and the transforming planet. Actually, what we need in order to achieve this, we need a transformative mind. And because today is the Teachers' Day, the teachers is the core actors in achieving the transformed education system, because the teachers, who is the owner of the educational system. The teachers is not beneficiaries in the educational system. As Mr. Giannini mentioned, when they review 100 countries, 50 of these countries, they didn't have climate change in their curriculum, while less than 30% from the teacher who has been questionnaire, they express they are not ready to teach climate change. And this is also because we are focusing on the social outcome of the educational system. We are mostly focused on the academic outcomes. That's why we have indicators regarding the academic outcomes, and we put all of our funding, our financing energy there. But when it came to the social outcome, we consider it extra curricula, whereas there is no indicators. We cannot even measure if we are making a progress towards climate change, or what we called it environment citizenship. This is very important. All the social values, we cannot even measure our achievement toward this. This is where is the problem. That's why most of the ministers of education, they didn't see the link between the academic outcomes and the social outcomes. When we are speaking about the climate change, we are speaking about the importance of the social outcome, because the climate change, the responsibility, the tolerance, all these values that we are keeping working. And the SGD4, 90% of the SGD4 is the social outcomes. That's why the Ministry of Education, they have to give consideration to develop indicators regarding this. Finally, I think is that the language is very important. I wish I can speak in Arabic, because I can speak more deeply when I use my language, because we cannot speak about transformative and the transforming education and in the Mediterranean area without even respect all the different kind of the languages that we are using even in the classroom. And finally, we need as individual and as a government to reconciliation ourselves with the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next and I believe last speaker is Netherlands.
Dear Excellencies, dear participants, the challenges of our time require radical changes towards a sustainable world. As you all know, education is key for developing the knowledge, skills, and mindset that are needed. Young people and students in particular are change agents, but the transformations that are needed require all of society to learn and innovate. The Dutch education system, within the parameters of our constitutional freedom of education, is on its way to reform its curriculum in order to make knowledge on climate change and sustainability a structural component. We let ourselves be inspired by the UNECD ESD strategy. We're enthusiastic about this strategy as it addresses formal education, but also non-formal and informal learning. Within and outside of the education system needs to be involved: schools, businesses, government, NGOs. The UNECD ESD strategy gives input for our national policy and programs, but equally gives us international inspiration of good practices and underlines the urgency for action. Therefore, it comes very timely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before proceeding, I would add a few words in Greek. Η Κύπρος χαιρετίζει το...
Cyprus welcomes the new strategic framework for the for the education for sustainable development. We consider that it is the road ahead for education for environment and sustainable development. We shall use it in order to review our national policy on education for sustainable development. Having supported the strategy of UNICEF since its introduction in 2005, our country acknowledges its value throughout time. We're going to pursue to achieve its goals on a national, bilateral, and international level of cooperation on the basis of the experience that we have gained from the steering committee on ESD. Cyprus is going to undertake an initiative to contribute to the development of policies on the strands for the first implementation phase, that is to say 2023-2025. For this purpose, we're going to give 150,000 euro for events, for expert knowledge, and for the organization of international meetings for the whole school approach. I would like to invite all the countries and all our partners for a wide collaboration so that we can indeed transform our policies together towards the direction of sustainability. I believe that through the Nicosia conference, we have an excellent policy tool.
those of you that you have already committed to support the strategy, and all of you that you will commit by communicating your statements to the Secretariat. All the commitments can be sent to the UNICE Secretariat in order to be uploaded to the website of the UNICE ESD Steering Committee. I think that after so many hours of work, we are in front of new beginnings. The new framework for the implementation of UNICE strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030 is a reality, and I invite you to adopt it by raising our hands. I believe there is. Okay, let's do it the other way. If there is any objection, we would like to hear about it. Given that, I want to congratulate countries and organizations participating in the high-level meeting of Education and Environment Ministries for the adoption of the new framework, and I think that we have to welcome the adoption of this new policy framework by giving our warmest clapping.
And I think that this is the first main outcome of the conference. We're proceeding now to the next item of the panel discussions regarding the 4 key strands of the new framework for the implementation of the UNESCO strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030. The segment of education for sustainable development will follow in the form of 4 interactive panels moderated by Mr. Royal Van Rij. The ministers will be asked to respond to questions. Open discussions are preferred to structured presentations. After the end of each panel, the floor will be open for 2 minutes interventions. The floor will be given to the countries and organizations that declare a priori their intention to intervene. I would like now to invite Mr. Royal Van Rij, Senior National Focal Point of Netherlands in the UNESCO Education for Sustainable Development Steering Committee, Policy Officer at the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature Management and Food Quality of the Netherlands. Mr. Van Rij, the floor is yours. You can.
Thank you. Can I have the mic? Yes. Okay, thank you. I keep this on because I have a hearing problem. So sorry, this helped a lot. Thank you, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies, gentlemen. First, thanks to Cyprus and UNECE for this conference and put ESD so high on the agenda, so prominent. Thank you. We worked with some of the colleagues here in the audience for so long for this moment, and I'm very glad that it's adopted now, finally. Okay, we are aware that we are about 30 minutes out of time. And as a moderator, I was told, can you squeeze it to 0? No, I can't. We Dutch are famous for being rude and short, but to have 30 minutes in a panel discussion without being very rude, I think it's impossible. Today we work on 4 strands, as mentioned, but be aware that all the other objectives of the UNECE strategy are still working. We educate teachers, we are working on materials, we are training. I think what is important, and it was mentioned several times, is about formal education, non-formal education, and informal education. So education is often named in combination with children and youth and schools. But ESD is for all of us. The learning process out of unsustainable acting. And how can we expect our children to solve the problems for the future as we don't live by example to them? So I think ESD is not only for youth and children, ESD is for all of us. And I think the four strengths are also underlying. Okay, enough polite words in the first place. Let's start with the panel discussion. Can I have here let's see. I was so organized when I sat down. Okay. Mr. Esther Villarubla Escales, Minister of Andorra. Mr. Michael Chelenki, Minister of Education in Georgia. And Mr. Andrea Bellusi from the Republic of San Marino. Can you join me, please, here on the stage? Thank you. Yes, welcome. Thank you. So, you are prepared, and you know there are three questions, and the three questions will be on the screen now. And the questions are, how do you guarantee that ESG embedded in national policies? That's a very important questions. And how do you support capacity building? The third question is how to involve professionals of all strengths. So the first question about the guarantee that ESG is embedded. And I have the first round floor for Mr. Escales. Please take the floor. There is a microphone. Yes, oh, you have it already. Thank you. Can be the microphone on, please? Yes, it's okay. It's not okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Si vous me le permettez.
If I may, I'm going to answer you in French. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, education has been and remains one of the main priorities of the Principality of Andorra. Andorra has a unique education structure offering all pupils three choices of an educational system, which is a plurilingual, high quality and free education system. Quality education, which is accessible to all, is an absolutely vital tool to guarantee sustainable development of all persons around the globe. And we believe that SDG 4's achievement, quality education, is a necessary precondition to achieve all of Agenda 2030. Otherwise, it would be impossible. Education centres at all levels must promote universal sustainable development, which leaves no one behind. Andorra has multiplied the number of activities to guarantee that pupils are the prime actors for change. Creating the network of green schools during the school year 2010-2011, which was initiated by the Ministries of the Environment and the Education, allowed us to acknowledge those establishments most committed to combating climate change. This network has convinced us that stronger global sustainable action would be possible. So for a few years now, Andorra, through the Pyrenean Cross-Border Cooperation Network, POCTEFA, has worked together with our partners to be able to adopt in 2020 the Pyrenean Strategy for Environmental Education for Sustainability. This framework has been the basis of the establishment since 2022 of an interministerial team whose mission is to draft the national strategy to correspond to the strategy for education and sustainable development of the UNECE. The text is entitled Learning for the Future, is the Andorran strategy for environmental education for sustainability, and it was adopted by the government of the Principality of Andorra on the 21st of September last. To guarantee the success of this, the drafting team made sure that it integrated all sectors of society in its design. Thanks to brainstorming sessions and exchange of good practice between governmental representatives, local authorities, educational centres, associations and civil society, and a questionnaire sent to all pupils aged between 15 and 18 years of age, we were able to present a strategy which does indeed leave no one behind and integrates all of the key points promoted by the different sectors. The strategy is based on 9 actions which will be achieved by 2030. These are organized around 3 major clusters to bring nature closer to young people, to promote activities of young people, and to raise awareness and spread information. It's true that young people are at the heart of the strategy, but it's not only for young people. Andorra is completely aware of the importance of lifelong learning and is committed to this. And this model is an intergenerational exchange, which is vital for transformation towards sustainable development. Your Excellencies, we are aware that the strategy that we have just adopted only focuses on the environmental sector, but it is cross-cutting in nature, and so it covers many more subjects, which will allow us to be able to work towards education in sustainable development as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A reaction, please, from Mr. Chen Kelly.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
It's working.
Yes, it's working. Very good. I would like to use this opportunity to, first of all, congratulate teachers all around the world. Today is Teachers International Day.
Thank you.
They are the true heroes of modern times, and they deserve the highest recognition.
Thank you on behalf of all teachers in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, all of us agree that education plays a vital role in every aspect of life, especially in the era of constantly changing environment. Be it political, economic, or social, in the era of technological breakthroughs and global warming, these challenges force us to respond quickly and effectively and to find the best solutions. We have faced global health crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, which made us change and reimagine our everyday lives dramatically, and most importantly, to adapt to the new reality. This proves that we live not only in the era of great opportunities, but in the era of global threats and as well. In the times of unprecedented advancements and challenges, sustainable development stands high on the agenda. Let me bring to your attention that Georgia has nationalized sustainable development goals and its strategy and targets by adjusting them to the national circumstances and advancing their implementation. Global Agenda for 2030 is part of Georgia's domestic policy. We acknowledge ESD as an integral element of SDG 4 on education and key enabler of all the other SDGs. ESD aims to provide the knowledge which is translated in attitudes and values and empowers the learners to make informed decisions in favor of the society they are part of. Environmental integrity and sustainable development in broader sense. Building education system that produces citizens capable of acknowledging their individual responsibility and shaping better society and contributing to the healthier planet is our paramount goal. In this regard, I'd like to emphasize that the new National Unified Strategy of Education and Science 2022-2030 was just recently approved. The new strategy, underpinned by the principle of leaving no one behind, is in line with the international obligations and commitment and UN Sustainable Development Goals. In response to modern international trends, it places emphasis on digital transformation, environmental sustainability, gender equality, democracy, green transition, and so on. The long-term policy vision of the Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia strives to ensure equal access to inclusive and quality education, as well as to improve lifelong learning opportunities, which is closely related to the principles of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe and UNICE strategy for education for sustainable development. Activities based on this strategy will continue and further strengthen the focus on preparing students and learners of all ages to find solutions for challenges and on equipping them with the skills from an early age to contribute to sustainability and live in harmony with the surrounding environment. Of course, we acknowledge the pivotal role of teachers in transforming society towards sustainability. They are the source and providers of knowledge. This is why the Ministry of Education and Science puts considerable effort in teachers, constant training, and career development. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think you raised two very important issues. The first one is the connection of SDG 4 in quality education in relation to the other SDGs. And the other one is the responsibility of teachers. It is Teacher Day, but they have need the confidence and the space to be the professional also in ESD. So thank you for that. Another reaction, please.
Merci. Excellences, chers collègues.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, knowledge at the level of schools is related to the capacities and to bring together knowledge, to a holistic approach to culture through the processing of information and aim that towards capacity building, an interdisciplinary approach in programs in education is something that is now related to a great and growing demand in different pedagogical and social areas, especially through the education to citizenship that covers broad and complex matters. And this cross-cutting approach related to the fundamental aspects of democratic societies related to sustainable development at the level of education. And here, education should be sustainable and should be based on equality, gender equality, human rights, global citizenship, and the culture of peace and non-violence. And all of this should be directly integrated in vertical programs that start at the very beginning. The role of teachers in these programs in San Marino is crucial. Teachers cover all of those professionals that work in schools, and this is something that is evolving constantly. And all of this relates to the great investments that we put into developing the professional levels of our teachers.
I was a starting teacher years ago, so your words are to my heart. Thank you. There were two other questions I want to raise just free of the paper, but I need a short answer. How to support the capacity building, because we have to, for quality education, you need all kinds of actors in the education system, for example, school inspectors, or inspectorate, or the school boards. What are the incentives to make them come to the table? Just one of you? How to deal with no? About the capacity building. What is your capacity building in your country?
For de l'engagement collectif.
Now, in order to ensure the involvement of everyone, as I talked about the strategy in Andorra and the interministerial group focused on the creation of a public platform, and the objective is to have a database that collects and shares resources for education, public awareness, and making environmental issues popular through giving visibility to different companies, actors, and professionals that work in the area of education. One of the objectives of the platform will be to give the government, but also local authorities, the possibility to see what actions and initiatives are taking place, and also look at the needs and requirements of civil society and all other actors. And the final goal is to ensure that these tools target persons and entities that usually don't work on these issues, and this will give them the possibility more and also participate in environmental education and sustainable development.
So with your permission, of course, the topics 2 and 3 are... Is it on now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Now
it is now.
from one extreme to another. So the 2 and 3, the topics of our panel, with your permission, in our opinion, are very much intertwined and linked. So
Yes.
we have a response regarding that. So it is our strong belief, ladies and gentlemen, that promotion of relevant and lifelong learning skills and competencies throughout the learning trajectory is essential to reach tangible results that will be translated in the long run into broader outcomes for the society at large. Education will not work without teachers. They are the forefront of our endeavors to reach the best possible learning outcomes for our future generation. The strategic vision of the ministry is to invest more in teachers and their continuous professional development. They will receive intensive and constructive feedback and share responsibility for learning outcomes with other members of the school community. At the same time, the capacity building of school principals in the direction of educational leadership, school management, and quality development will be strengthened. The Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia will support active engagement of professional associations and organizations, academic and civil society in the professional development and training programs of school principals and teachers, including coaching and monitoring programs. High quality, modern, and diverse learning and teaching resources will be made available for teachers. Certainly, the process of trainings and professional development of teachers on a wide array of topics, such as sustainable development goals, citizenship education, human rights, democratic culture, environmental education, etc., will continue with the aim to embed most essential skills and knowledge in the educators of our future generations. Let me also emphasize that the new third generation national curriculum is based on a constructivist educational concept focused on students' personal development. The document identifies 8 priority topics: protection of cultural heritage, protection of the environment, healthy lifestyle, civil security, conflict management, financial literacy, cultural diversity, and human rights. Civic education has been particularly strengthened in the third generation national curriculum. Sustainable development is a cross-cutting topic in the social science subject group of the national curriculum. We recognize the importance of education for sustainable development, and thus we are putting more effort to develop skills fit for the 21st century among our new generation, as we are well aware that sustainability means better future. Educated, informed, and responsible citizens are at the heart of healthy, just society and sustainable development. Sustainable development can be reached not and collective actions. Georgia reiterates the importance of education as a driving force for progress and recovery from the global crisis. Just recently, the Prime Minister of Georgia has presented Georgia's national statement of commitment to transform education in New York at the Transforming Education Summit. In this regard, I'd like to stress the importance of international cooperation, experience, and good practice sharing in the direction of embedding ESD in national policies, supporting capacity building for learning, and quality enhancement programs for sustainability. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I go for the combination of the other questions and a statement to you, Mr. Berluzzi.
Well, la durabilité.
Sustainability is something that we should think about thoroughly as we look at schools throughout the school cycle of children. And we have to form citizens on an open and participative approach, actors of sustainable development and promoters of peace. We have to place global problems at the heart of the knowledge that we're transmitting. Sustainability also is something that is a strategy that relates to civilizational project to ensure social justice, solidarity, and a long-term resolution of disputes and conflicts, intercultural approaches, and harmony amongst religions, building sustainable society, ensure the participation in a new world of democracy. And all of this starts in schools. And schools have to think about their own organization, the quality of education, and they can actually be those examples of sustainable communities through sustainable dialogue. Perhaps what is missing and something that we really need is systematic approaches that will integrate economic and environmental policies through educational policies. And sustainability cannot be something done by only one sector. And this is why we should carry out comprehensive educational processes that involve institutions dealing with education, like schools and universities. But also, this should involve the administration, companies, public officials, all of this in order to ensure high quality and better standards of well-being. And we should improve these qualities. We need training, and we have to develop training policies in order to ensure that young people can still believe in this economy based on environmental issues.
I go to the audience for just 3 interventions, and the first interventions come from Cyprus. The permanent secretary had asked for the floor. Cyprus, where are you?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So much. I will make use of the host's privilege and speak in Greek. Η εκπαίδευση για την αειφόρο ανάπτυξη στην Κύπρο.
Education for sustainable development in Cyprus is a priority of the educational policy and is integrated horizontally across many policies on environment and sustainability. It's also integrated in the National Strategy for Biodiversity, the National Strategy for Adjustment to Climate Change, for the targets of sustainable development of the UN agenda, and so on. The structure for education on sustainable development is crucial. That is the policy of the ministry. And of course, that will cut across all educational levels in the official, non-official, and unofficial education, and NGOs also to introduce education on sustainable development at all levels and on all sectors that are linked. Of course, this will guarantee long-term the monitoring, the updating and the cohesion, not only for education, but for other national policies on environment and sustainability around this. Now we are deploying, if you like, the policy for sustainability together with the Organization for Standards. And this will act in synergy together with the implementation in every school unit. The assessment of the degree of implementation based on quality indicators, and these indicators were developed by the regional group for sustainable development.
Spain. Can I have the contribution of the State Secretary of Spain,
Yes.
please? Yes. Thank you.
Spain believes that environmental policies are the backbone of all other policies. Over the last several years, we developed a comprehensive set of legislation that is aligned with the challenges that we face in the area of energy and climate change, preservation of biodiversity, protection of waters, and the promotion of circular economies, supported by tools of communication and education to raise awareness and understanding in citizens. The new organic law on education that is promoted by the Ministry of Education and Professional Training was adopted. We're referring to a law that combines the principles of quality with a focus on excellence and provide additional opportunities in educational and training for all of our people, that recognizes the importance of education for sustainable development. Also, the Ministry of the Environment has been working for more than 30 years on the development of environmental educational initiatives in the informal sector through the National Environmental Educational Center to promote the responsibility of citizens in the face of environmental problems through the development of educational programs, public awareness programs, and also involving the participation of citizens. Also, in January 2020, the government approved the urgent climate environmental declaration that promotes environmental education with a plan that is coordinated by the Ministry of Environmental Transition and Demographic Challenges and the Ministry of Education and Professional Training. This is a strategic document that represents a roadmap that 20 years after the publication of the White Book on Education and Environment in Spain is yet another effort aimed at clarifying the priorities that we should give to education for the environment in the long term for the period of 2020-2030. This plan includes actions to be carried out by the two ministries and recommend guidelines for other key development partners and initiatives and programs related to environmental education, covering our autonomous regions, the public sector associations, educational centers, universities, and other actors. In conclusion, the government of Spain is strongly committed to education for sustainable development as a key tool that will lead to the necessary changes at the individual and collective levels to deal with this global crisis. And we're very pleased to express our support to the adoption of the Nicosia Ministerial Declaration on Education for Sustainable Development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the applause is over there. I had so many more interventions from the audience. Just two more? Just one more, but please stick to the 2 minutes limit. The last one in this round is Palestine. Can you please take the floor? Yes, please.
Distinguished ministers, thank you for inviting us to this conference. Despite our condition being a state under occupation, where we don't have control over 70% of land, sea, water, and air, in spite of that, we did accomplish several ESD decisions in terms of education. First, in terms of capacity building, we established the Palestinian Teachers Professional Development Index. We also have the education strategic plan and the sectorial strategy for education with monitoring and evaluation system were developed based on the ESD goals. We also established the Quality Education Committee to monitor and the achievement of the ESD goals. We also have the Atlas for Sustainable Development, which is really a good idea for monitoring and evaluation. We also have a biannual periodical survey for educational environment, which is actually the Ministry of Education feeds on this biannual survey. In terms of the capacity building, we also established the Palestinian Teacher Professional Development Index and reforming the national curriculum to include SDG goals and learning experiences, enhancing the school environment policies, and publishing several SDG manuals focusing on waste recycling, hygiene, and energy conservation. We would like to work with everybody in order to have a freedom of sustainable development in Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sweden, Malta also. Malta and Sweden also.
I was informed that we do also the other reactions from the audience. Okay, but please try to stick to the 2 minutes. I give the floor to Mr. Häggström, Ambassador of Sweden. Let's see.
Thank you.
Here?
I'm
Thank you.
over here.
Yes.
Dear participants, dear moderator, I would like to start by extending our gratitude to Cyprus and all other countries that are present here for your engagement and participation at another meeting, the UN meeting Stockholm Plus 50 that took place earlier this year. At this meeting, we emphasized the interconnectedness of global challenges and demonstrated the opportunities generated by a holistic approach that connects climate and environment action with development priorities and human well-being. And this, we find, is a key legacy of Stockholm Plus 50. Why do I raise this? Because we find that this is highly topical for our theme here today, since education for sustainable development is indeed an essential part of this agenda. Well-informed and well-educated populations spur ambitious action. Education for sustainable development, both within the education system and throughout life, is a prerequisite for sustainable societies and lifestyles. Education for sustainable development fosters agents of change who can lead the transition to a sustainable society. And this is essential in meeting the challenges associated with issues such as climate change and making the transition to a sustainable society within a generation. Sweden, on a national level, has introduced curricula about environment and sustainability on all levels of education. Sustainability topics are chosen so that they are appropriate for respective age groups. Understanding of the importance of nature starts already in preschool. Also at university level, degree programs over the last decades have been adapted to better prepare students for challenges of climate change and sustainable development. At the level of society, of course, also in schools, civil society organizations play an essential role in spreading information, fostering discussions and debates. We'd like to conclude by saying that education for sustainable development is key for reaching the SDGs and needs to be further promoted, including within the UN system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, please. The next one who asked for the floor is Mrs. Sandra Ebeyer from Malta. Can I give you the floor, please?
Excellencies, Ministers. Thank you, Cyprus, for hosting this session today. The Minister for Education, Sport, Youth, Research and Innovation is committed to provide a holistic national cross-curricular ESD and global education program that supports the fostering of principles, values, skills and competences towards the nature of national, European and global citizens who can opt for sustainable lifestyles that reflect environmental stewardship, while advocating for a democratic society that values inclusion, diversity, solidarity, and social justice. Through programs addressing formal education at primary, middle, and secondary levels within our Maltese schools, VET, and also non-formal programs through the National Youth Agency and Adult Education, the Ministry also seeks the nurture of individuals endowed with a 21st century skill set towards every individual's creative, innovative, and entrepreneurial contribution in a fair and just national and global economy. This vision is in line with the UNICEF's Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development, Malta's Sustainable Development Vision 2050, and the UNESCO's Global Action Programme for Education for Sustainable Development. For the past years, the Ministry has invested in continuous institution-based support, mandatory and voluntary educator training, and procurement of teaching resources. These efforts are contributing to the planning and development of school-based policies that reflect a holistic and balanced ESD and GE vision that moves beyond the traditional fragmented environmental approach. Malta's Sustainable Development Vision 2050 emphasizes the strong interconnection between economic growth, environmental protection, and social cohesion. This integrated perspective, along with the multi-stakeholder approach proposed by this vision, is now laying the foundation towards the compilation of a holistic national policy on ESD and global education that truly reflects the needs of a 21st century nation. The Ministry for Education constantly seeks the collaboration of local stakeholders, including the Ministry for Energy, Environment, Energy and Enterprise, Nature Trust Malta, BirdLife Malta and COPEN, whose initiatives and contributions to formal and informal learning programs consolidate efforts in the behavioral transformation of scholastic communities. During the last scholastic year, the section has continued to work on our Directorate's ESD and Global Education vision, ensuring the fulfillment of students' ESD and GE entitlement. Being a cross-curricular team, the provision of this entitlement currently relies entirely on the goodwill of school administrators, who are keen in developing a balanced ESD and GE program and culture within their schools. The support provided by my directorate and all its officials encourages a school-based policy that promotes the fostering of principles, values, skills, and competencies towards the nature and the nurture of national, European, and global citizens, while to opt for sustainable lifestyles that reflect environmental stewardship, while advocating for a democratic and just society that values inclusion, diversity, and solidarity. The Directorate's work in ESD and global education is aligned primarily to UNICEF's 2025 Strategy for Education for Sustainable Development, UNESCO's Global Action Programme on ESD, and Malta's Sustainable Development Vision 2050. Throughout the scholastic year, the Directorate has maintained and strengthened collaborations with several local stakeholders, including Nature Trust, BirdLife, and CEAR, the Centre for Environmental Education and Research. Collaboration with European and international stakeholders were also consolidated. Such stakeholders include Global Education Network Europe, UNESCO Associated Schools, and the United Nations Economic Committee for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To wrap up this issue, just a few key words. And I think what is repeating is the position of SDG 4 as a lever for all the other SDGs. Another thing that's coming back and back is the role of the teacher, the central role of the teacher, but also for principals and school boards. The other word is training, because ESD is complex. You have to work it out, what it means for them. The other word is platform, multi-stakeholder platform to involve. And The other one, what comes back for me is monitoring and evaluation. Look what you're doing and learn from that. So to conclude for this, this panel, thank you very much for your interventions and thank you to the audience. Thank you. Applause for, please. Thank you. I want to mention again that your time slot is 2 minutes. And thank you very much. I think we all understand that time management is also a quality. But please try to focus on the subject of the panel and be short. So the second panel. And now I'm not organized anymore. I lost a panel. Yes, the panel is on the whole school approach and the whole institution approach. And I'd like to call to the podium Dr. Zoltan Maruca from Hungary and Mr. Prodomos Prodoumu from Cyprus. Yes, welcome. So the questions for the whole school approach, please. The support for whole institution approach in your national framework. It is a rather complex issue, the whole school approach, whole institution approach. What can you say about the support? The second question is based on your national experience, how your policy ensure the collaboration between all the stakeholders that are needed. And the third is, what are the benefits from a whole school approach or what are the challenges? So these are the three questions. And I like to give the floor for the first reaction to Mr. Maruca, if I pronounce it the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The concept of sustainability is included in the Constitution of Hungary, which establishes that all the policies and strategies we have in the country are strongly built on the coherent concept on sustainability. A holistic approach of ESD is included in the most relevant legislative document and strategies on education also. With our two whole school networks in formal education, we can teach children what collaboration means and extend this to members of local communities so stakeholders can experience the values and the advantages of whole institutional approach. So by these good practices, actually, we can promote whole institutional approach to be adopted in other schools, institutions. That's the way.
Thank you. Thank you. A brief reflection, please.
Comment soutenir l'approche holistique dans
How to support the holistic approach, the whole institution approach for sustainable development? Well, I would say that that is part of our education program in Cyprus. And it's part of our environmental education program for some 10 years now, since 2012. Each school adopts its own plan of education in sustainable development, and this plan provides for an organizational part and potentially visits to different sites, and also a pedagogical framework which is adapted to the school and the level. Each school plan defines different questions, different problems at the local level, so adapted to the local environment. And then the activities are centered around this question, this problem, in an interactive way. and we have a participatory program for students. We use a method of investigation to develop networks and develop partnerships in the local community, experts, professionals, NGOs, and so on and so forth are all involved. If I could give you some examples, a school which might have chosen the topic, the question of waste management, there would be a program for recycling of school materials. Then there might be a shop where they sell the end products of recycling or upcycling, and then the funds can be used for the school. And then there's the biological aspect of growing different crops and then selling these, growing different products. Then there's also recycling oil from kitchens. So we recycle kitchen oil, and the fuel which is then produced from this recycling is used in certain vehicles which are also built in vocational schools. So that's a very popular example of how schools can work on these hands-on projects together with a non-governmental organization, actually, which has a stand. We have programs which involve the participation of the school and the local authorities. All of these activities are coordinated by the ministry. We create guidebooks which are distributed to schools. But of course, we have a network of head teachers and teachers. I would like to extend my warmest wishes to all teachers on this special day for them. Thank you.
Thank you. About the policies to support the collaboration, what is the situation in Hungary?
Hungary hosts a twin excellence network of whole school ESD. The Eco School network and its twin counterpart, the Green Kindergarten network, ensures that every first student in Hungary exercises the advantages and values of whole institutional sustainability. We speak about more than 1,000 schools and 1,100 kindergartens. Besides, national initiatives such as the Sustainable Thematic Week may also raise attention the whole institutional ESD. In the past 6 years, about half of the secondary school students were involved in such programs in our country, and they experienced the power of collaboration and peer learning thanks to these programs, projects.
Thank you. Thank you. About the pluses and the minus, can you mention something minus, or is it just all good news? Please.
Well, if you look at the minuses, the disadvantages, well, these disadvantages are linked to the amount of autonomy that schools have and improvisation. These are challenges, but the advantages are an intergenerational approach. Very often the parents are involved in this kind of education, this kind of project. Young people are brought together and we create a kind of environmental identity linked to the commune, to the local community. That's very important indeed. Also, we've made efforts to create a sense of responsibility at local level. And then there are some shortcomings or perhaps disadvantages, areas where we're still facing challenges. That would be to focus on training of teachers, because there are some who are ready to improvise, who are open to that, but others who want a guide, like I've said before, who need perhaps more assistance. So our problem is to strike the right balance to really find a balance here, to make sure that there's room for improvisation, but there's also a model and guidebook for the whole of the school system.
Thank you. You have any minus on whole school approaches, whole institution approaches, or is all good news also in Hungary?
If I would be the Minister of Finance, I would say that costs money. That's the only minus. But as Secretary of State for Education, I say this is a good investment, even for ministers for finance. It's a good investment, absolute. As for advantages, I have to highlight some aspects because first, I think that whole school EHD creates an inclusive learning environment, and this is very important, and this increases the local engagement of students, which is also a very modern and important issue. We observed that the dropout rates are lower and motivation of students and teachers are also higher in these institutions. These are more in project teaching, more methodologically also in project ways oriented. So these are absolute positive issues. For teachers and school leaders, whole school approach means learning opportunities, especially if it is linked with networking across schools. So it's a possibility of peer learning, learning from each other, which is, I think, is also a very modern, absolute approach on education.
So I hear mainly positive things. Of course, money is always a problem, every country. But I think this whole school approach, whole institution approach is answer to the what, the how, the why, and the who is involved in teaching. The term autonomy from schools, well, it refers many for my country where freedom of education is in our constitution. So the freedom for a school to have their own school plan, to have their own vision, to deal with the local actors around their school. So it is very, well, what's come to my mind is it takes a village to raise a child, but it also take a village or a province or a city to build a good school. So this cooperation between actors around the school and in the school, I find that very stimulating. Yes.
I can add something in the holistic approach. Dans cet approche holistique, il faut.
In the holistic approach, you need to also incorporate the building, the actual facilities, the physical building, so that you have a school, a specific school, which is following that message as well, which is also living this message. So I agree then there might be issues of financing. We have a program which is partially funded by the European Union, a European program, which we call BETIA, which is a model to transform a certain number of schools, but not all. So we're going to need more financing.
It's not top down that every school can be in whole school approach, but I'm also glad that the term eco schools came past because many people here in the audience are involved with the eco school idea for many years. I see my friend Paul Pace there. He's working for eco schools for ages. I like to go to the audience, and I have let's meet my glasses. Mr. Uroš Fajlu from Slovenia, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, dear Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. In this segment, I would like to share with you information on endeavors that Slovenia is undertaking to raise capacity of all stakeholders in applying innovative methods supporting transformations for sustainable development. Slovenia has namely joined forces with Climate Kits, the EU knowledge and innovation community, for a nationwide deep demonstration project to support the application of so-called systemic innovation approach for transformations not only in education policy, but in all relevant policies. Systemic innovations approach has been recognized as an approach to address complex challenges, such as sustainable development, where business as usual will not yield the necessary transformations. Slovenia is implementing the systemic innovation approach by decomposing the challenge of addressing climate change into compact, deliverable actions and by creating the mindset that is necessary to implement these. The ambitions of our deep demonstration project is therefore to push for the transformation in all sectors, but we see the education sector and its stakeholders at all levels having a paramount role in that they need to stay ready to support transitions for sustainable development and for more resilient and greener economy and the society as a whole. Enhancing capacity building in systems innovation thinking to build a deeper systems mindset across a spectrum of stakeholders in structured and a coordinated way is how we see and understand the whole institution approach. This project is kind of an experiment on how tools developed by an EU knowledge and innovation institutions can be applied on the ground in the everyday work of public administration and other stakeholders on their path towards transition. I trust that already at the next Environment for Europe conference, we will be able to share some concrete results of this nationwide learning and capacity building project. Thank you.
The next who asked the floor is Mrs. Alexandra Mladenovic from Serbia.
Thank you.
Yes.
We strongly believe that both whole school approach and the whole institutional approach is the right way to ensure education for sustainable development to be integrated both in formal and informal education. Whole school and whole institutional approach are integral part of the Eco Schools International Program, which is implemented in Serbia since 2012 and facilitated by NGO Environmental Ambassadors for Sustainable Development. We started with 3 pilot schools. Currently, there are about 160 educational institutions in the program. The specificity of the program is that it includes the entire community in actions organized by Eco Schools, supports the activism of young people who notice problems and propose sustainable solutions in their local communities. It is based on practical work and extracurricular activities and creates opportunities to include concepts of environmental protection and sustainable development in all subjects. With the support of different donors, different topics were the focus of projects in which Eco Schools participated. Thus, in the last 3 years, the focus was on energy efficiency, which encouraged some local communities to help Eco Schools in specific activities in order to become more energy efficient. For example, wall insulation, replacement of windows, replacement of lighting. Eco Schools program is well accepted in schools for children with special needs. Through methodology of 7 Eco School steps, they develop skills that can help them easily integration into the community and can help them to strengthen economically through the preparation and sale of products from recyclable materials, for example. Challenge we are facing is that it is more interest of education for sustainable development in Serbian Eco Schools than with donors. Thank you.
Thank you. So for this topic, we have great expectations from whole school approach and whole institution approach. We are now talking about schools, but I think it's also the same issue for businesses, for governments. Not only talk about it, but also living what you preach and cooperate with your surrounding. I hope in the next stage that the whole institution approach have a broader idea than schools alone. Being said that, I'm not saying nothing negative about schools. Let me be clear. So I think it's a challenging concept, not only for the content of the education, but also the way you practice teaching and learning. So thank you very much. I go to the next topic. Thank you, panelists. Give them a hand, please. So for the next idea, it's about digital education and ICT. We have only one panelist. And for the other issue, entrepreneurship, employment, innovation, we have only one panelist. If you allow me, I like to call to stage both persons, and then I try to have a conversation about both issues. Don't worry, I won't ask questions that you are not prepared for. So can I please have to the stage Ms. Nikki Karameus from the Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs from Greece. Yes, thank you. And for the Republic of Serbia, the Secretary of State of Education was still traveling. But the Ms. Ivana Hadžić-Stodić was the State Secretary from Ministry of Protection of the Environment, would like to take the stage instead of her. Can you please join us? Yes, here you are. So unprepared from another ministry, and you think, help, what's gonna happen? Okay, I will be kind. So digital education. Well, this is a strange panel, just you and me. But let's go into the questions, and please feel free to intervene when you think, well, I have something to say about that. Okay, can I have the questions for? Can I please have the questions? Yes. Okay. A balanced use of digital tools for ESD. What means it in your national context is the first question. The second, from your experience, how did the transition to digital education due to the pandemic impacted positively or negatively? And in the third question, in which way digital tools can contribute to a meaningful way of learning? Do you have national experiences? So that are the questions. And of course, we are all aware that in this time of electronic devices, we can't imagine how we survive without them. So digital education, ICT, I think is here, but how to use? Can I give you the floor, please?
Thank you so much. Thanks so much to the organizers. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be here amongst such a distinguished group of people. If I may start from the end, from the third question.
Yes.
Having to do with digital education. So here we are to combine two different themes. One, digital education and sustainability. So how are those two combined? When one thinks about digital education, the first things that sometimes come in mind is software, hardware. I think it's about a lot more than just software and hardware. And I'll explain what I mean. When one talks about digital education, I think it's important to refer to the 3 C's. Which are the 3 C's? Connectivity, content, capacities. So connectivity, obviously there's no digital education if there's no connectivity. So number one is the focus on connectivity. Coming from Greece, we have undertaken a huge effort, especially during the pandemic, so as to ensure that all our schools will have high-speed internet access, and that our education community, so teachers and students, will have access to digital equipment. So we gave out a voucher for the purchase of digital devices, tablets, laptops, etc., to all teachers of Greece. And by the way, I would like to wish them as well for the day being the World Teachers' Day, and also to students who are most in need. So connectivity is number one, but connectivity alone doesn't get you far. So one has to focus a lot on content as well. So when I refer to content, we're thinking about digital material, we're thinking about platforms, we're thinking about open source material, and that's something that we in Greece are really focusing on, to have all material online, to have a horizontal digital, I would say, theme, and ensuring that all material is available and is accessible, and it's in an open data form. Now, the third C has to do with capacities with competence. So there, I think it's really essential through digital learning to focus on the cultivation of skills, digital skills and soft skills. And I mention this because our young generation, so imagine a student that's now entering elementary school, he or she will enter the workforce, let's say in 2038 and 2040. At that point in time, what are today our first grade students will be bombarded with information. So it's really essential for them to be in a position to separate the wheat from the chaff. So to be in a position to separate what's useful and what's not, what's right and what's wrong. So I think there is where we have to focus a lot on skills, critical thinking, empathy, problem solving, collaborative work. In Greece, we do that through a new subject matter that's called the Skills Labs. The Skills Labs are introduced into the mandatory school program of all schools of Greece, and they specifically focus on the cultivation of skills through thematic axes. One of those axes has to do with the environment. I mention it as I think it's at the very heart of the topic of this debate we're having today. Focus on the environment, climate change, protection from natural disasters, etc. So I would say there's a lot. I think there's a lot of point of focusing on the 3 C's when one talks about digital tools and digital education.
Yes, thank you. I'm very pleased that you mentioned capacity, but please not only for schools, because I'm an ICT lost in ICT sometimes, but my children are on other age and my grandchildren live with it. So I think the capacity is for us all. Have you something? No? Okay. I'll leave you alone. But I was aware when COVID started in the Netherlands, within 3 weeks, it was arranged. All the lessons, all the schools were transferred to digital learning. And we urged for that for years. And then in 3 weeks, all was arranged. Well, it's not rather a positive issue alone. Let me give you another question. If all the children, suppose you have 3 children, they have all to attend school by a laptop or a tablet or something, and you only have 1 in your household, how to deal? That was one of the problems. They said, well, it's nice that we have a digital education, but how? What was the situation in Greece? The same?
Well, it's definitely a problem we faced when all schools closed in Greece. One of the problems we faced was how do we deal with households that have, for instance, 2 working parents and have 1 or 2 or 3 kids, and so they need more devices. Number one, we sent, for instance, over 90,000 devices to schools so as to cover families which were in most need, number one. Number two, we split the time. So we said that in the mornings, we're going to have high school students, junior high school and senior high school students. And then as of lunch and in the afternoon, early afternoon, we will have elementary school. And we did that in order to facilitate families, both in terms of equipment, but also in terms, especially for the younger kids, for their parents to be in a position to help them. Imagine now having a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old trying to connect. It's obvious that very often he or she will need the assistance of a parent. So that's why the solution we found and we implemented throughout the pandemic, whenever schools were closed, was to put in place different time zones, I would say, for the different grades of education.
Yes, thank you. A last question about this topic for now. And you mentioned you are drowned in information and starving for wisdom. That's the saying in the Netherlands. But there is also a lot of misinformation. If you look to the social media, let's say about Ukraine, so many different angles, so different messages, what to believe, what to use as information. How prepare we how do we prepare people for information and misinformation?
I would say the answer is critical thinking. And I would say the change in the approach that we're trying to achieve also at the EU level is moving from a system that focuses on learning to a system that focuses on learning how to learn. So I think that's the triggering effect. So that's the silver lining. That's the area we have to focus on, because for an additional reason, think of the following matter. I mentioned earlier that students that are entering elementary school are going to start working at the age of 2038. Can we today plan or imagine which professions will be in most need in 2040? We cannot. What can we do, though? We can equip the younger generation with skills that will allow them to adapt when the time comes, that will allow them to learn on their own. So that's why I think the very essence of what we ministers of education should be focusing on around the globe is moving from a system of transfer of knowledge to a system where we try to equip the youth in order to learn how to learn, to be in a position themselves later on to learn for themselves outside of an education system. So moving from learning to learning how to learn.
Yeah, but always critical thinking. Let's put that first. With your permission, I go to the audience from some reaction on this topic, and then we'll come to you. Okay, I have three interventions asked, and that is Mr. Awartan from Palestine. You had the floor already, but again.
Thank you very much. I think during COVID-19 in Palestine, we have digital tools, e-school system, we have e-learn platform. Also, we establish our educational canal, and they still work. So that these things, I think that give us a message that you must make parallel attention to ICT and to media when we speak about sustainable. These digital tools were effectively used during COVID-19. They are being leveraged nowadays in the blended learning. These tools has been embedded in the MO educational policy also. And also, it was shown at the beginning of the pandemic due to lack of infrastructure and also insufficient of trained teachers, so that we invest in the capacity. And you must take in consideration when you have capacity building, you mustn't focus only in the knowledge, because the easiest thing is that you must change the attitude, so that when we speak about environment, we must work in the mentality of the teachers. He can use the tools, but it is difficult if he not persuaded by the importance of this to work with you. So that if you want to activate resources, these tools will help you. There are learned lessons from COVID-19. Maybe you have the knowledge as I mentioned, but the main thing is to focus also on the other actors in the schools. There are supervisors, school principals, so that in the capacity building, you must also have another persons, parents also through this system, e-school can check their children's status using e-school. Supervisors follow up teachers works through e-school. I think that we use also virtual health schools initiatives was introduced to help students who couldn't physically attend the school for health conditions. At last, I want to say that platforms, media, cooperation with all the partners integration between the preschools, because we try to train the teachers of kindergartens also. Issues related with environment and with the universities, very important, as you mentioned before minutes, in pre-service and in-service program, we must take a subject like this. Thank you very much. Thank you another time.
Thank you. From Cyprus, I want to give the floor to Mr. Neophiloudos, if I pronounce it the right way. Where are
That's
you?
same person rule.
The same person. But it's now in writing and not in
is, huh?
print. So
Okay.
we are the same.
Going again in Greek, making life easier for Miss Kerameos, though her English are excellent. So here I go. Τα μέτρα τα οποία λήφθηκαν
The measures that were taken to tackle the pandemic that mainly concerned the restriction of temporary closure of schools or their operation with a limited number of students and teachers, and also remote education, had an extreme impact on environmental education, because they suspended the programs of the state centers for environmental education, which is the most complete structure of non-formal education on environment and sustainable development in Cyprus, and offer experiential learning that are fundamental principles for education for sustainable development. So the design and the implementation of the sustainable education policy had suffered a lot, because they had no longer the capacity to work with the partners of the schools, and they could not undertake action in schools or in communities in order to tackle an environmental question. As a result, skills required for environmental education, such as awareness, empathy, action in a real environment, it was not possible to develop these. Also, this violent transition to digital education allowed us to rethink practices and procedures, and created conditions of familiarization of educators with digital tools that they used in a pedagogical manner also for education for sustainable development. We created classes on TV for primary schools. We've created a digital data bank for education for sustainable development, and comprehensive methods, such as a series of comprehensive courses for the waste of food and sustainable consumption. It contributed in creating an interactive platform to promote communication and cooperation between schools that promote a sustainable educational policy, having as a horizon the school year 2023-2024. The controlled return to normality, which is what we are experiencing now, is an evolution of the digital transformation that took place in order to have a balanced educational program with an impact on knowledge and skills acquirement. Thank you.
I have another request from the floor, and I have no name, but it's the Mediterranean Association to Save the Sea Turtle. You must be in the room somewhere.
Right here.
Yes, please take the floor.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is George Sampson. I am the director of the Mediterranean Association to Save the Sea Turtles. We're based in Athens, so it's nice to see the minister here. You have been talking about digital education as if something is new, because I guess everybody's now referring to the online digital education, whereas there was digital education before. We as an NGO had been practicing this for many years. with the approval of the Ministry of Education of Greece, especially sending via USB sticks educational materials to schools all over the country, including Cyprus. It was very important for me, and I'm sure for other people here, to hear the acknowledgement of the important role that NGOs have been playing in the ESD. And we have a complementary role that goes beyond the students. And of course, we put a lot of emphasis also on adults, people of second chance students, employees of private industries, and of course, senior citizens over 65. Our experience with the digital education had to be, of course, be adjusted during the pandemic period. But our experience also is that the digital education, whereas it was a necessary solution, it can't compare with the in-person education, especially for environmental programs, because the most important negative impact was the total absence of visits and outdoor activities, educational activities, which are so important for environmental education. So yes, it is a very important tool. We used it, the government used it, but there are certain limitations that we cannot forget. And I'm sorry because my computer just went dark. Digital classes and digital tools can surely contribute to learning for sustainability, because it is always easier to enrich the material and to download digital educational material over, for example, sending printed material. And using digital classes, we can implement educational programs with very small or very distant schools, which was something which we did not have the ability to do before. If schools close again due to a pandemic, I hope it doesn't happen, we will be able to continue educating, but keeping always in mind the limitations.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'm glad that you also mentioned the limitations. Let's have education about values and not have personal contact. That's very, very difficult. I think it's impossible, because when you are to the social aspects of of sustainable development, you need to be in contact with other people. Okay, I close this. Oh, you want to react? Yeah, please.
If I may just a couple of remarks based on what was just heard. So 3 points. First, the first gentleman regarding the mentality shift. There's no doubt that what we're talking about entails a mentality shift, and that it takes time, and that it needs a lot of effort on training of the teachers. So I think we're all in agreement. It takes time to change mentalities, and it takes time to train the teachers appropriate. One has to invest in teachers training. And also, with respect to education for the environment, I think one has to start really early. When I say early, I would say at the age of 4. I would say in pre-K. I think it's really essential to start as early as possible and to aim as broad as possible. Now, on the second point regarding the pandemic and the effects it had, there's no doubt that the pandemic led to a very violent, I would say, disruption of the regular educational activity. That being said, I think despite the major consequences, very severe consequences on the education process, I think one can actually detect some positive effects in education. For instance, the adaptability that was cultivated with students and with children, how easily they shifted from open schools to closed schools to distance learning, etc. So I think that this is a skill that was heavily cultivated for the children. And also, while I want to be very precise about emphasizing the fact that distance learning can never, in my opinion, fully replace in-class learning. It's something different, but it can enrich it. Distance learning and digital tools can enrich in-class learning. I want to share an experience I had in Greece a few months ago. I was visiting a public high school outside of Athens. I go into the classroom. This is during regular operation. I walk into the classroom. I go straight to the kids, but something was going on. They weren't focusing. I couldn't really get it at first. So they say, can you please turn around? So I turn around, and the kids are connected. This is a public school in Greece, with one of the major universities of Greece, the Greek Polytechnic School, and the European Organization for Nuclear Research. They're connected, all three, at the same time in a public school in Greece. I think that's a very clear example of how digital tools can come and enrich in-class learning. One final point also on ESD and NGOs. There's no doubt, at least our government very firmly believes in the role of NGOs, and that's why in this new subject matter we have introduced, which is called the Skills Labs, we have very purposely followed a bottom-up approach. We have asked NGOs to contribute through their programs, through their know-how, through their expertise, in order to form these innovative educational programs. And truth be told, there's a very large number of NGOs that did respond, and we're grateful to them for it. And that's the way we will push forward, especially when it comes to ESD. I think that society as a whole has a very important role to play as far as the educational content is concerned. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to roll into the next subject. And for who are thinking my bus is going, I'm dealing with 10 more minutes for this issue. So don't run for the bus, because we are finishing this in a proper way. Thank you. So, about entrepreneurship, about innovation. Well, perhaps not from the perspective of education, but from the perspective of environment. What are the new jobs? What are the green jobs in environment? The questions are, how can ESD-oriented entrepreneurship and employment programs support vulnerable group, marginalized group, and youth? Do you expect increased youth employability? And which needs and opportunities can education oriented to sustainable innovation and entrepreneurship be provided for accelerated transformation? Well, there's a lot of questions. I give you the floor.
Thank you.
Not? It's on. Yeah.
I'm glad to be here with you today. And I'm not Anna Maria Vicek. My name is Ivana Hadjistasic. I'm State Secretary from the Ministry of Environmental Protection. Well, I have to say that the Republic of Serbia recognized the importance of entrepreneurship and education for sustainable development as an important component for the development of society, with the task to prepare a person for life and work in changing environment, changing that person's attitude and raising awareness of global problems in the sphere of economy, society, environment, and to enable them to undertake action aimed at solving this problem. Education for sustainable development is studied with several subjects at various levels of education in our educational system, compulsory subjects like biology, chemistry, geography, and primary and secondary school, optional programs education for sustainable development and civic education in grammar school, free teaching activities, My Environment, and Save Our Planet in primary school. Entrepreneurship exists as a free teaching activity in primary school and as a compulsory subjects in vocational schools for all educational profiles. Of course, the topics in these subjects intersect. In addition, entrepreneurship and education for sustainable development are present in other subjects to a lesser extent. I will give you some examples of project tasks in the program. Second grade grammar school. On the e-twinning platform, students connect with students from other schools in Europe and develop a comparative study in the field of sustainable development. For example, for waste management. Students should identify the similarities and differences in the practice of unsustainable waste management, and they should answer the question, their key and obstacles for establishing such system at the local level. And bearing in mind that education for sustainable development includes natural, social, and economic factors which enable creating conditions for young people to participate in activities that contribute to improving the quality of life in their immediate environment, encourage and support social environment, promotion and protection of their interests and the opportunity for action. Achieving the goal of education for sustainable development increases employability while reducing poverty. By developing an entrepreneurial way of thinking, the possibility for young people to open companies increases, and then confidence, creativity, and responsibility develop as well. Achieving the outcomes of teaching and learning programs related to sustainable development, which develop several key competencies, young people in Serbia increase their chances to employment and train for activities, participation in action in campaigns, and successful participation in a democratic society. Entrepreneurship is studied in secondary vocational school and compulsory subject in the final grades of those educational profiles that are based on the qualification standard. The weekly number of lessons is 2, and the annual level, it amounts of 60 to 68. The course does not have exactly the same contents in all educational profiles, but they are very similar and comparable. And also the topics covered similar, but not entirely the same in all educational profiles. And of course, there's differences in outcomes. When talking about innovation, the scientific technological and innovation system contributes to the accelerated development of the Republic of Serbia through the improvement of the quality and efficiency of science, technological development, and innovation, thereby significantly helping to reach the standards of developing economies. The Republic of Serbia strives to improve and strengthen its position as innovator with particular measures defined by the government, which are reflected in the easier startup of business and the improvement of digital business, the development of circular economy, easy employment, and the provision of initiative, which leads to the creating of new intellectual property, at the same time gives the incentive to transfer the technology in the economy. The adoption of a stimulating legal framework, the continuous provision of financial resources, both from domestic sources and with support of international organizations, as well as availability to expect and qualified labor, is the reason why Serbia is progressing and positioning itself as an economically successful and innovative country. And bearing in mind the measure to support the development of the innovative economy of the government of Serbia, and the importance of developing the capacity of the economy for innovation and improving the competitiveness of the Republic of Serbia scientific and research organization, the Innovation Fund of the Republic of Serbia, the Science Fund of the Republic of Serbia, the Network Science and Technology Parks in the Republic of Serbia, as well as the Center of the Promotion of Science and other organizations. It is important to highlight the role of Innovation Fund as an organization specialized in providing support to innovating activity and managing financial resources to encourage innovation. It's important to point out that from 2019, informal teams can apply at Fund's public calls with the early development program, and they are obligated to register a business only after their financing has been approved. This public call creates opportunities for very young people, secondary school graduates, and university students to start to develop their first steps. The Science Fund of the Republic of Serbia was established in December 2018, with the primary goal of providing support for scientific research and development activities in the Republic of Serbia, providing financial resources and providing professional support to researchers from accredited scientific research organization in the implementation of science project with the program launched by the Science Fund. Following social challenging oriented towards sustainable development, the Science Fund has announced a public call for the Green Program of Cooperation between Science and Industry which provides the opportunity for scientists to carry out applied research that will be important for the economy and that will influence the reduction of environmental pollution. And 3.5 million euros have been allocated for this program for the budget of the Republic of Serbia. In accordance with good examples of international practice and the experiences of the Belgrade Science and Technology Park, at the first functional science and technology park in Serbia, the Niš Science and Technology Park, the Čačak Science and Technology Park, and the Novi Sad Science and Technology Park were also established. With this center, the Republic of Serbia has a network of science and technology parks with a tendency toward further growth. By accelerating the technological development of its region, each of these science and technology parks contributes to the development of the entire country. One of the goals of the Science and Technology Park is certainly the establishment, continuous maintenance, and development of cooperation with primary, secondary, and tertiary education institution as a form of support for the education process at all levels. It is reflected in the organization of study visits, programs, training, thematic activities, and events with the aim of supporting the transformation of education. And the Center for the Promotion of Science is a public institution whose role is to establish a link between science and society by bringing together all relevant actors and the general public in the process of research and innovation. And the ultimate goal is the integration of society into research process in order to gain the best possible insight into the needs of citizens and to face social challenges as adequately as possible. Program activities of the Science Promotion Center are intended for participants from all age groups, and they aim at promoting the importance of partnership and participation of children and adults in the field of science and education.
Thank you very much for skipping in this subject. So, unfortunately, there is no further time for interventions. So, to conclude these 4 panels, just a few words. I think all we acknowledge that ESD is a motor for the change, not only for children in schools. We all have to learn. The 4 strengths we have showed to you will be a focus, but there will be a broader agenda. Not forget the other objectives of the strategy. And ESD is not only a responsibility of the Ministry of Education or the Ministry of Environment. For myself, I work for the Ministry of Agriculture by an accident. But for all ministries to work together, to collaborate. And also all other levels of government, which we are not mentioned today, the provinces, the local authorities, the water board, for example, in the Netherlands. So huge transitions are on the way. And there is no blueprint for the future, but we can learn our way out of unsustainability. So big thank you for Cyprus, especially you, Arabella, and to UNECE, and all the other aspects will make it possible that we have this framework now and be so prominent to the agenda. And with that words, I hand it over to you, and thank you for your collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Rij. Thank you, Roel. We could not end this meeting without giving the floor to the youth, our future. Before the adoption of the framework, 200 children of the Pernera Primary School, a school of Strovolos, Nicosia, are here with us today and will call us for action now. Please welcome them, welcome the kids with big clap and listen to their wake-up call.
Nou ja, ik heb geen rol meer hier, dus ik weet niet of dit nog een half uur duurt.
Nee, ja.
Of nog een heel uur, of anderhalf uur.
Ja.
Zie ik jullie wel bij de Ik ga vanavond nog een houden idee mee, dus ik ga gewoon zelf met jullie mee.
Well, we are reaching at the end of the segment focused on the adoption of the Nicosia Ministerial Statement on Education for Sustainable Development. The ministerial statement is holistic and concrete. It describes in a clear way the target, where we want to go for ESD as member states of the UNESC region. It is inspired by a vision. It has also strategic goals to be achieved by setting concrete and feasible tasks. Our statement is based on equity and inclusivity, democracy, solidarity, and dignity. It is a ministerial statement established on collaboration, participation, and mainly commitment of all of us to work together to realize the ESD goals we set. At the same time, this statement urges us for action to insert ESD across all educational and training programs in formal, non-formal, and informal education, to focus on the 4 priority strands of the framework for the implementation of the UNESC strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030. With no briefing on the content, given the time we are and the context of the ministerial statement, I would like to consider, if there is no objection, that we adopt the framework for the implementation of the UNESC strategy for ESD from 2021 to 2030.
The ministerial statement.
The ministerial statement. I want to thank each one of you for participating in this inspiring session. I thank the UNESC Secretariat, all the members and observers of the UNESC ESD Steering Committee, the chair of the UNESC ESD Steering Committee, Arabella, for a great job, and for the great job that they all did these years to prepare such a concrete, flexible, feasible, and inspiring framework for the UNESC ESD Strategy 2030. I want also to express our appreciation to the interpreters for their valuable contribution to this session. The planet is our home and we are all its citizens. It's time the member states of the UNESC region to work intensively for a better world. I am certain that with the financial support and the commitment of all countries, the steering committee will continue its great work, and because our world needs it, we have now a new valuable tool. Thank you everybody.